All right. Good Saturday morning, everybody. My name's John Newman from Sports Card Nation. It's another episode of Hobby Hotline. Starting to lose count here. I believe this is 89. To my right, or to my depending on to my right on screen. I'm gonna give you a nickname, Rich. A lot of people know he's Uncle Rich Klein. I'm gonna call him Hobby Yoda. Just a guy that just knows so much stuff. And just I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I like Uncle Rich, but let's give him a better nickname. So Hobby uh, Yoda, I like that. It's a compliment. And below us, only on the screen and in age, for that matter, we have Sam Shuford from Women of the Hobby. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Sam, I enjoyed listening to your two interviews with Dr. Jim yesterday and today. It
Yeah,
was a lot of fun. And since one of the topics mentioned was about handsome people and how women collected handsome people, when I was a dealer way back in the day in New York, and I'm only saying it because it's the 43rd anniversary of the day. This is the most wonderful day in Yankees history. Deep to left, Yastrzemski won't get it. It's a 3-run homer for Bucky Dent. And there were people who, Bucky Dent was considered a handsome young man. And I had women collectors all the time. They would want his cards. So there is actually something to be said for what he brought up, because when Jim and I were dealers way back in the day, that was an actual subject.
yeah, definitely. That was pretty fun to have the time to sit with him and talk through different things. And yeah, like you said, the kind of attractiveness of someone and like whether or not you collect someone because of that. I think in everyone's probably collection, it might play a small role whether you realize it or not.
Well, and I think you answered that question perfectly. So kudos to you on that. You answered it in a better way than I sure would have answered it.
I got a confession. There's a comment from Mark Hoyle. I got to spend some time with him in Cooperstown a couple weeks back. That story you tell, Rich, about that time in Yankees history, that is actually when I was a Yankee fan at that point. But I wound up changing my allegiance. That's a show unto itself. I'll just say it was Steinbrenner's fault that made me change, and we'll leave it at that. Yeah. Also, Rex here, Rex Gocher. Good morning from New Buffalo, Michigan. You're on the big screen here at the shop. Have fun as we always are. That's that's a good segue into our first topic here on the show, and it's a show I did recently on Hobby Quick Hits, my non-interview show that I do on Mondays, and we've just seen a rash of break-ins with LCSs, and unfortunately, the sports card shop at Moco got hit last night at about 3 a.m. and a few boxes stolen. I guess it always could be worse. They feel good about that the suspect or suspects will be eventually apprehended. But we've seen Jimmy Mahan's Kentucky Roadshow card shop get hit twice. We have a card store here in Syracuse called Southpaw Collectibles. Not a fan, but nonetheless, they were robbed 3 times in 5 months, and they actually caught the same people were doing all 3 robberies. And how they caught them was they were going every other month. So they were taking a month off and then coming back and breaking in again. So on the 3rd time, they had the local police here set up a sting operation. They literally caught them in the act and apprehended. It was 3 suspects, 1 local and 2 from, believe it or not, my hometown of Brooklyn. And so all 3 people were apprehended. But we're just seeing across, and obviously more than what I've mentioned. These are just ones I've talked about or commented on. If you look at some of the hobby news websites, they've reported other ones as well. We had one in Altoona last month, Rich and Sam, where it was brazen. It wasn't even after the store closed, but this suspect came in brandishing a weapon, had the 2 people in the store go into a bathroom and lock him in there and steal money and wax boxes. They caught him fleeing on a bike no less. And when they asked this gentleman why he did it, he said he needed money for Halloween decorations. Now, kind of, I guess we can have a laugh over that. I mean, just for those out there that if you're struggling with Halloween decorations, the dollar store is a great opportunity to pick some of those up without robbing your LCS. But all joking aside, we're just seeing a lot more of these, and one of the reasons I think that we're seeing a lot more is just because where cards have went. They've become more mainstream. There's more news reports of what these things are bringing on auction markets, and some people who maybe don't know the cards like we do just think all cards are like kind of sort of in that vein, and they're just breaking in and taking cash and some cards. So I just recently did a show. Before we get into some of the specifics, your thoughts on why we're seeing more of these and maybe even ways to prevent it. I have, from that show I did, I have some. If I opened a store again, I had a store from 92 to 97. There's one of the things I would do right off the bat. But before I even mention that, just I've kind of rambled on, Sam and Uncle Rich, kind of your thoughts on what we're seeing here is a real bad trend.
Hobby Yoda says Sam should go first as a junkie.
Yeah, I can agree that I've definitely seen it more throughout, and even my local LCS back in Atlanta. In the time that I was still living there, they got broken in. They were going actually that morning to set up for a show, and then that morning, they realized there was a break-in, and since then, they've gotten different security measures and things. But yeah, it's definitely been more prevalent, and I do agree. I think it is just because the value of these boxes and these cards have just gone up so much. It for some people it might be worth it for them for whatever reason, that may be buying Halloween decorations or whatnot. So
I'll also point out it's not just limited to stores.
Mm-hmm.
I set up at the Dallas Card Show. And there's been a raft, and thankfully many of them have been caught because they've really improved the security. Each show gets better for that. And I mean, it began sadly as one of my friends had a money bag with $10,000 stolen from him. And that really got their security to another level. And thankfully, not that we like his money being stolen, thankfully in his case, he could afford, it was a blip for him, and it wasn't something that was going to, destroy him financially. Others people's of mine have. So on that level, it's one thing. But on another level, it really did pick it up. Like at the last show, I was in what they call the side room. Well, what I would call the side room, what they call the Starlight Room, which is a room with 100 tables in it, which is actually a pretty good show in itself. And on Saturday morning, the head of security for the Dallas Card Show comes. I happened to see him. I happened to be visiting. I went to all 4 local stores in the last 2 days as prep for the show, actually. And he happened to be there. And I was telling him, on Saturday morning, he showed me on his phone, no less, the action shot of the guy stealing cards in that room, the Starlight Room, of this guy stealing cards. He got so overconfident, he came back the next day and got nabbed. We also had the guy with the Luca stealing a Luca one-on-one who got played and came back the next day to sell it, only to find out that the police, and there's video of it, walked him out with his hands behind his back and handcuffs. So it's not just, and I'm rambling like John, but it's not just the shows. It's not just the stores. It's the shows. And the shows, you have to be very vigilant yourself, because you don't even have some of the backup you do at some of the stores. And it's a hard thing. I went to the four local stores in the last day, and only one of them had only one person in the store at the time. Every other store had more than one person, and there's a backup to that. Way back in the day, I had friends of mine who owned a card and coin and jewelry and whatever, and they bought a lot of silver and a lot of gold back in the day. And they were borderline to a neighborhood that wasn't as good. And I mean, if anything ever happened to their store, they were usually situated where they could tap their foot and have the police there in 5 minutes, and the police knew to come immediately.
Yeah,
So
it's like banks. They have that button that's under the counter for the teller. Worst case scenario to sound the notification that there's a problem in progress to get quietly get the police notified. And it's we're talking about a bank, in this case a bank, but now we're kind of translating it over to cards, because as we've talked about, Sam said, they're very liquid. Cards are very liquid. You can sell them. There's so many different selling platforms now. So unless it's a graded card with a serial number, there's really no trace. There's obviously more than one of most cards. And so, obviously you get into some of the vintage stuff. They're a little more identifiable. But some of the, more your modern days, there's plenty of them, and so selling one that's not graded and not serial numbered is easy to do without really any major suspicions. And it's crazy where the hobby's going there. A couple comments from Canton Card Collector. He says his card shop, they have the budget in to get into the store, almost like a New York City check cashing place, and have to sort of recognize you and let you in. I think that's a little crazy, but I get it. That's still at nighttime when no one's there. That I don't know what other measures they have to prevent a break-in. And here's another comment. This is what I talked about on that Hobby Quick Hits. Lock all your high-end product in a safe. So if I ever opened a store again, one of the first purchases I would plan to make is, and I don't know what they cost. I know they're probably not cheap, but I would get one of them industrial, heavy duty, 6 foot tall safes with the walls that are this thick on it. And I hate to say it's going to be a lot of work, but every day at end of business, I'm putting all the wax products, anything of single card significance in there, almost like doing a show every day in your own store. You pack up, put it in that safe, obviously lock the safe, leave for the night, and come back in the morning and put everything back out again like you're doing a show each day. Sure, it's a lot of work, but at least you're protecting your stuff. And if someone to break into that, no safe is foolproof, but the time it would take, and obviously I would have security alarms and cameras, the time it would take to break into that safe, we'd have either plenty of footage or the police would be there apprehending perpetrators. So it's kind of crazy that we're talking about stuff like that, but you need to do that. One funny comment here, I have to put it up, from Jim Pierpoint. I've heard your voice for a long time now on podcasts. This is the first time seeing your face, John. Now you know why I have a face for radio. So that ends that mystery for Jim. But going back, and Mark, who I actually spent a day with in Cooperstown, we joked about opening up a store in Cooperstown. So he says we have to figure this out before we open that shop in Cooperstown. But yeah, it's just you got to protect yourself, and we're seeing just a lot more of these. But I think the safe, I don't know what those things cost. I'm probably one of the first things I do when we're done here this afternoon, just out of curiosity, see what those things run. But that's probably one of my first purchases as far as if I was to open up an LCS ever again. It's just someone said to me, we were talking about this in person at a show I was doing, and someone said to me, well, rather than a safe, you can kind of take a briefcase home with you and take the expensive cards out with you every night. Now you're making yourself a target. A lot of people who do these things actually scope out a place before they do the crime, and so they see the store owner leaving with a briefcase every night. They know there's either money in there or cards or both, and now you're putting yourself at risk. So probably not. I would probably go with the safe option over bringing cards home and having them on my person as I leave a store. So your kind of thoughts on the safe or other ideas maybe to prevent these, so we stop hearing so much.
Well, I did notice in the comments that our friends at MoCo said having this already existent security measures help mitigate their losses, and they're going to re-examine and do more. So I think they're well on their way to, continue to make it a happy experience for their customers, while at the same time, protecting themselves, and that's fine. I mean, you want to protect yourself. You want it to be a happy experience for a customer to come in.
Yeah. It's someone else put about having a weapon under the counter. I think obviously it's a last resort. You want to, a loss of life, even someone who's a dirtbag, if you will, that has ill intentions in mind. Oh, here we go. Liberty Fat Boy Safe, $1,000 to $1,200. Not bad. If that's what they cost, I mean, when you think of what National Treasures boxes or Flawless boxes, Transcendent stuff cost, this safe is well worth the protection of those items on a daily basis. And I'm sure there's other safes. I'm sure they're even more money depending on what model. It's like cars. You could get the Kia or you can get the Mercedes. So. And by the way, I like Kia. I own one, so it's not a knock on Kia for those out there before you yell at me. So, going back to Richie said about the gentleman you knew that had $10,000 stolen. To him, like you said, it was he was able to recover. That's still a good chunk of coin to
yes, it was. I said, thankfully, in his case, it didn't destroy him financially.
Yeah.
It still sucks. I don't want to imply that was a good day for him.
Yeah.
But
do you know the details? Did he set it down? Was it out?
Well, yeah, he used to keep it behind his. Okay, to try to explain, he'd be part of a group with friends, and most of his friends are from Florida. Well, one of the people sublet their table that was near him. And that person invited like 8 people behind their table.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of those 8 people took advantage.
It's potentially someone even that he knew and liked.
No, he doesn't know those people.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it was like, and from that point on now, he's okay. The subletting is what it is. But now he has a table set up where those people can't, they get blocked from coming behind his table.
Well, Rich, you do shows for many years. I've done shows for a long time. My money is either actually really recently. I always have it on me, like in my pocket. I do have a cash box that I have at a show, but usually in the cash box, it's just change and singles. And so if someone, and it's a small cash box, if someone, when I'm not paying attention, if that was the case, could get that and run off with it, they're going to get 30, 40, maybe $50 max. But everything else is on me. And at the last show, I actually bought a fanny pack. The first time for me, I wore a fanny pack. You're seeing that more with show dealers. And I kept funds there. It's easy. It's easy to make change right from it. It's at a good spot to grab and make change. And so,
his thing was basically like a fanny pack, but he didn't keep it around him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. No one deserves to have $10,000 stolen from them.
No, as I said, the side benefit, and there's no benefit, so to speak, is that it really got the Dallas Card Show to really improve and spend money on security.
Yeah.
There are cameras in the main room. I'm in the Starlight room. There are cameras there. There are people monitoring it in both rooms. So they really are paying attention, and that's as good as you can get. So, I mean, So the benefit is now, as I've mentioned with those two people who were caught and the other people who were caught on tape, is we know who they are, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's been a benefit. I'm sorry for my friend,
Yeah.
but it's helped the rest of us.
Yeah, the good thing is, I mean, it's not good that these robberies and burglaries are occurring, but it sounds like in about a good percentage, maybe 75% of them, they are catching those folks. But what needs to happen besides catching them is the penalties have to be severe enough where it becomes a deterrent. If you're letting someone out on probation or 6 months, it's not a huge deterrent. So some of these penalties, need to be severe. But in the one in Altoona, this gentleman, for the Halloween decorations, or so he says, he brandished a weapon, so that becomes obviously an armed robbery, and that's a different stratosphere than breaking in when the store is closed. Both crimes, but a little more brazen and a little more. He's going to serve probably more time, and rightfully so, than someone that breaks in after hours. But we're even having a little debate and chat with weapons, and I think, to me, the safe is the best play. That way you don't have to carry it out on your person and make yourself a target. And those things, if you know anything about them, are number one, they're very hard to break into or crack, and they're just so heavy. Even for those smash and grabs, we've seen like trucks crash through a store, the front of the store, and they throw stuff in the back and then drive out. Even with those size safes, and as long as to me too, if you have them in the back, no one's going to be able. I don't want to say no one, but it'd be very difficult to get into a vehicle and drive back out with it. And those things are so heavy too. It's the truck, not depending on the truck. When it's already crashed through a window, maybe already have trouble having the traction to take something of that weight back out. So for those, for wrecks, we're sorry to hear that. Thankfully, it wasn't worse. But you said you have a lead, and you're working on it, and you feel confident that the perpetrators will be apprehended. I did put the link up in the chat room for anyone that wants to call in. If you have a different idea about maybe preventing these, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, any last thoughts, Sam or Rich, before we move on to our next topic?
I have a few.
All right, go ahead.
One, I saw Rex's comment about how difficult it is because he heard the comment about balancing security with being, we'll call it, customer friendly. And that's a very tough balance, because you don't want to put everything under glass. You want to have, I'll call it, some touchy-feely experiences. You want to have to be able to have a tactile experience of looking at the pack or looking at the cards. The 50-cent cards, you don't want to keep the 50-cent cards behind the counter or hidden in any way. You want to have those 50-cent cards out for people to look at them. You can't have all your supplies behind the counter. It's a really tough balance with customer friendly and, proper security. And then a couple stories from my past. In 1979 or 79, I think, I was helping my friends at Baseball Hobby News, Frank and Vivian Barning, at a show. And this guy buys a 65 top set. And I was working the table at the time. I sell the set. It's $450. And I'm counting it. But this is a New York City hotel. I think it's the Hotel Taft. You could look in from the street and see me counting the money. And I'm thinking, if anybody actually paid attention, they could come to the store with a gun or some sort and say, "We want all your money in the store." And this is 1979, so it's not as much as today. But there's still a lot of money in 1979. And I was wondering, how come nobody thought about doing that? And I'm sitting as I'm counting the money. It's not even my money, but I'm thinking, my Lord, anybody can see what we're doing. And the second thing is, John was talking about how he keeps money. My old friend, Mike Galella, who's no longer with us, and I've told the story in my old Sports Collectors Daily column, had these sneakers, with like little things on the bottom, like, pouches. I think they were like kangaroo sneakers.
Oh, I remember those.
Anytime he got a bill of a $50 or $100, it would go in his sneakers. And his policy, because he grew up in a rougher neighborhood in the Philadelphia area, was that they could rob me, but I'd always have all my big bills. Nobody would think about looking for your shoes.
Shoes, you could put it. I've put money in the past in my socks before. That's probably about as crazy as places as I put cash is in socks. But yeah, I remember those kangaroo shoes. The only problem is whenever you had them, like people knew they had pouches on them, so they may consider looking there or having you just take your shoes off. But yeah, I mean, whatever works. I mean, that's the thing. One more comment too. Canton Card Collector said about, well, open your store up, in a nice neighborhood. That's not an answer. Like Rex says right here, we're in a very nice area and 500 yards from the brand new police station. Thieves are brazen. That's exactly right. The card store I mentioned here in the Syracuse area is in a city called Cicero, New York. Anyone from the area will know immediately about that city. That is a very nice town with very expensive homes. It's generally considered very low crime neighborhood, and the property values reflect that. They were robbed 3 times in a 5-month period. So I think, it doesn't matter necessarily what neighborhood you're in. Sure, if you're in a bad neighborhood, maybe you get, you have a higher percentage, but these things are in good neighborhoods, excellent neighborhoods, as Rex pointed out. I just pointed out with our Cicero store, and they're being robbed. The people will find out. Like we said with the values of these cards, people are just going. You can just go to the yellow pages and look up hobby shops, and just circle one and make it your target, and could care less what neighborhood it is or isn't in. And so I don't think that's sure. It's better to open in a better neighborhood. I get that. I don't want to totally discount the comment, but as far as preventing burglaries or break-ins, that's not the answer to it. Sam, any kind of thoughts to kind of close this segment out?
Yeah, I agree, and I've enjoyed kind of listening to the stories as well. But yeah, I think just kind of with the last comment here, yeah, you could be in a good area, but that bad people could still go to a good area type of thing. So, but yeah, hopefully, I think even if those hobby shops who they've seen all these other hobby shops get, unfortunately, these things have happened to them. Like, hopefully, that's also preparing them, making them more prepared for what could happen to them as well. So hopefully everyone's just making their arrangements, so to speak, and just being prepared for what can come or whatnot. So
yeah, and Bo just said, nicer neighborhoods, people, bad people are going to assume the upgrade in what's in that store, maybe more money or better cards. So, probably makes you a bigger target if you're in a nicer neighborhood as well. I think to open a store now in modern days, that safe idea, I think is a great one. Obviously, cameras, security systems. Rich will know what I'm talking about here too, being from the New York area, right? The stores, right? What do they have on them? They're like garage doors. At the end of the business day, these things roll down and lock. They're not aesthetically pleasing. Let's make that very clear. But it's not. You're not trying to win a beauty contest on a storefront. You're trying to protect your business that you built and your merchandise that you purchased and for sale. So a lot of these New York City, Brooklyn, where I'm from, have the roll down sort of garage doors locked, steel bars. Rich knows what I'm talking about. There's steel bars over windows and that sort of thing. Again, doesn't look very pleasing, but you're closed. It doesn't matter what it looks like at nighttime. It's nighttime, you're closed. Those things roll up and you're open for business. So, predominantly you see them in like major cities, but maybe we'll see them more so even in other towns and whatnot. But whatever you got to do, if you build your business and you put your hard work and effort to it. It's sad that someone with ill intentions who could care less about that can take advantage. So, do what you got to do, and hopefully we start talking a little bit less about these. So the other big story this week, we've heard all sorts of innuendo. What people, myself included, are speculating that Fanatics is now going to do with the three licenses: basketball, football, and baseball. But for the first time, the CEO of Fanatics, Michael Rubin, spoke since the acquisitions of those licenses. It was the name of the show escapes me, but it was one of those morning
CNBC Squawk Box. Andrew
All
Ross.
right, there you go.
Andrew Ross
Yoda.
Sorkin did the interview with him, and people are wondering, but Andrew Ross Sorkin also edited the business section or part of it for the New York Times. So I think he has a pretty good idea of what questions to ask CEOs.
Yeah, and thanks, Rich, for Yoda would coming through like he was on that quick too. Not only did he know, I didn't even finish my sentence, which is fun. He had like the name, the reporter's name, but good job, Rich. But
you have to understand, I watched CNBC.
Well, I watched the interview.
I know who these people are.
I think I was so strongly like watching the interview, I didn't pay attention to what show it was and whatnot. But in that conversation, if you watched it, you heard Michael Rubin say like they want to be the one-stop shop for everything. They want to do everything internally, from grading to distribution to selling platform. And one thing that struck me is one thing I've already kind of predicted on my shows is if I'm a distributor in the sports card hobby, I'm a little nervous right now. I'm very concerned with the direction my company would have to go if Fanatics is successful with their business model. I think it's ambitious, but they have a lot of capital behind them. They were just evaluated at 10.4 billion.
18.4, John.
18. All right, 18. So that went up. It went up. 18. It was 10.4. Now 18.
I think it's 18.4. I'll look it up.
All right. So either way, 10 billion, 18 billion. That's still a lot of billions. So they're a major force. The one thing they just haven't done yet is actually produce cards on their own accord. That will be uncharted territory for them. But with that being said, Michael Rubin in that interview did say that they most likely, that was how he quote, most likely will be purchasing an existing card company. Did not mention who or what or when, but he did mention that it is most likely a possibility. Now, when he said that, I don't know, Rich or Sam, what your thoughts are on this. When he said we will most likely be purchasing a existing card company, to me that sort of tells me, like, again, all speculation, I could be completely wrong here. It kind of tells me that there's probably been some feelers or even discussion about a potential sale, to just kind of come out and say, hey, we're probably going to buy a card company without actually having any sort of open dialogue with anybody. It's pretty brazen. Again, this is a brazen company, so it wouldn't shock me either way. So now my thoughts on one company sort of doing everything, I'm not going to lie. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of just having one choice and one choice only, or someone kind of being a monopoly, if you will. We hear that word in businesses, and so I'm a little leery. I'm critical of the 20 years Fanatics got on these licenses. I think that's way too long, and I hope. I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm sentimental to Topps. I hate to see the Topps brand go away. So if I have any rooting interest in who gets bought, if anyone gets bought, I like to see that Topps line continue, even if it's Topps under Fanatics umbrella. I'm assuming, I know Rich, you've seen it. Sam, I'm assuming you've seen the interview. Just your thoughts kind of on the interview and my thoughts off the interview.
Yeah, I can start briefly. Honestly, just because I've actually not watched the full interview. Obviously, I've seen everyone post about the interview, but I've not sit down like and taken the time to watch it. So may not have too much, but I did essentially through reading other posts and things like that. I did also hear a lot of people with especially the same sentiment around the distribution companies. Currently, that's kind of a might be a hard position to be in right now, especially when you have fanatics over here saying we want to do everything. That kind of eliminates. It's like where do we fit in into this? So I definitely kind of heard that, and then I think it's interesting. I didn't hear the comment, which obviously I'll have to watch this, but I didn't hear the comment about them buying a company or buying a card company. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it was kind of to me maybe going to be assumed in the future. I think that a lot of people, once they heard Fanatics was taking over, they kind of assumed they might be buying out another card company. And then, yeah, lastly, I think my final thought too is I really don't know how I like one company doing it all. I mean, just going back, I just graduated school. All you learn in school is, competition is better for the consumer. And so if you have one company doing everything without a competitor, the consumer isn't always maybe going to get the best value or the best product as well. So yeah, definitely very interesting, and I have to take the time to go back and like watch the interview. Obviously, like I said, I saw people post, but I have not seen the full thing. So those are kind of my initial thoughts as well from what I've heard, though.
Well, I have a few things.
I had a feeling.
Yes. Well, one, this whole thing, in this tangentially relates to the card store break-in issue, is there's money in this hobby. There's a lot of money in this hobby. There was that supposed group led by Alex Rodriguez wanting to buy Panini for $3 billion with a B. Topps was going to do their public offering through their SPAC and get hundreds of millions of dollars. If I'm the players or I'm the owners and I have this asset, which is being able to sell these likenesses, so to speak, and put them on cards, why shouldn't I get more money? And one of the things Fanatics said is, why should we can help you if all goes well, make more money. And if you're the players, and most players have a limited lifespan in terms of how long their careers are, if they can make more money, why shouldn't they? And so on that level, you can understand why a deal was made with all these entities. And Brad assured me that they also said they have the leagues, and some of the leagues and some of the player associations have an equity stake in this now too when all gets done. So, if you can make more money, why not? If you can control what you do, why not? And that's how they're looking at it. We're looking at it on our level. So first you look at it at the business level. Why not do it? Well, you do it because you're making more money, or you think you can make more money. And if you think you can make more money, that's a no-brainer to do it. So that's the first thought. The second thought is Fanatics has a great distribution setup. Our friends from Moco, Rex from Moco was talking about that. Now, if all goes well, and we don't know what the future is, we're still a few years away. We still have a lot of details to sort out. Is if you're getting the cards, like if he's already getting material from Fanatics, he's an established customer. He should be able to get some things. Will he get everything? Probably not. There will be direct to consumer. Fanatics has an amazing direct to consumer, I'm pretty sure, email list already. One more thing for them to do. They have the infrastructure. Why not? I've always said, and you can see this on tape, I've always said the end game for this hobby is direct to consumer. This is going to speed up that process. And also, we'll pick a random superstar, Giannis. we know Giannis has supposedly kept cards in the past. Well, what if he keeps the card, but you're the one that buys it from him? What if you know that you're getting that card, the key card directly from a key card directly from Giannis that's 101? And and it may even be personalized for you. It may even be in a holder, a graded card holder. They have holders already for cards. They've done just not full.
He better have a sales tax number, Rich, like me and you have to get.
I understand that. I do have a sales tax number. But what if you get the card directly from Giannis? Get a special card directly from Giannis, and he gets to keep some extra money. Not that he truly needs it, but he grew up poor. He's very fastidious about it. He gets to make extra money, and you get the experience of dealing with him directly. I mean, is that the worst thing in the world to get an item directly from the player? And I'm pretty sure Giannis would be an example of somebody who would do that. I remember way back in the day. I mean, and through the Trader Speaks, it was a big industry. I don't want to say scandal at the time, but it caused problem. Mike Burkus, one of the founders of the National, had a relationship with Rod Carew, and in a 1979 ad in the Trader Speaks, he was selling items directly from Rod Carew. Today, it would be considered totally normal. Back in 1979, that was a big no, don't do this. Mike Burkus was only 40 years ahead of his time.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of thoughts, and we wanted to hear more thoughts too. But if always try to look at it from a business angle. And I mean, Sam, obviously, from what you said, you took business courses in college. You're working now, so you're fresher at this than we are. I'm old and wizened and Yoda-like now. You're young and fresh out of school and looking at it from a different way. But I bet you wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, everyone, especially in business, is kind of looking out for themselves mainly. And, if they can get more money, why not? Essentially, I would agree. I mean, I think that's kind of one of the main concepts too, is you learn kind of the greed of the world, which is sad, but it's reality. So.
Yeah. Listen, what Fanatics paid for these licenses, which is rumored to be 10 times the highest previous amount paid by Tops. They have obviously they're in it for financial reasons. Let's make that very clear. That's not a secret. Of course, they want to do as much with the licenses as they can. And one of the things that happened this year that I don't think we've talked about it, but I don't think we talk about the correlation with this licensing deal was the NIL, right? These professional athletes who are already in the pro leagues are seeing what these college guys are making their own individual deals, some 7 figures, right? And they're like, hey, I can get sponsored by Nike and make a lot, but I can't do an individual deal with a card company like Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma just did. And these guys pay attention. They have an agent. They have a team of financial advisors, and this is probably most likely the reason this deal got done was they got a seat at the table. And I'm not even saying they shouldn't, like Rich just said. It's their name, image, and likeness on these cards, and they want to benefit out of that. I think the one positive thing that I hope comes from this new licensing deal, and I think most will agree, maybe we see less redemptions because the players now have an equity stake. They're in a sense part owners, whatever percentage you want to say it is. They're part owners of these brands now, and so they're probably going to be more accessible to sign and get those cards back quicker. Maybe we see more in-person stuff anyway. Fanatics has a lot of relationships with these players prior to this licensing deal even occurring. So I think that might be a positive, less redemptions or quicker return times on any redemptions that do exist. Now, let's talk about the grading. Fanatics has mentioned with this recent interview that they want to get into the grading space. They didn't really say how. So I don't know if that means, buy an existing grading company that they can purchase. But if it isn't, this is where I definitely have a problem with is a company grading their own cards. To me, it would be like Topps starting a grading card company today and grading Topps cards. To me, it's a conflict of interest. PSA, SGC, BGS, and any other graders don't produce cards. They're grading other people's products. I think for a card company, which Fanatics will be, to grade their own production is a conflict of interest. So I really hope that doesn't occur. Or if it does, I hope people kind of see it the same way and say, hey, we need a third party. There's some that will argue we don't need any grading. No, that's sector. But if you're into grading, whether buying, purchasing, or submitting, I like the fact that there should be no skin in the game for that grading company. So, if Fanatics gets into the grading aspect, I hope it's with the purchase of another company, which it can be still. And then some might say then that it's still not really third party. It's now they've owned it, so it's still a conflict of interest. So, kind of your thoughts on the grading aspect of them getting into that space.
Well, if I were Fanatics with the way they're purchasing things, I'd be looking into buying. And I know there's a division of a bigger company, but I'd be looking into buying Beckett because it gives you control over. Beckett already has a good database infrastructure, which leads to their grading. So I would look into buying them, and I would just say, and I might even overpay and just say, how much do you want? Fine, here's your check. I mean, I'm just saying that in terms of, again, a business level, nothing more. You want to have the infrastructure already set up for grading. I know Fanatics hasn't done formal grading, but they've put cards in slabs in the past. So they have that experience. All they did was like put them and say they're authentic, like a 54 Topps into a slab. So they actually have it set up. And again, do you want them formally grading the card? No, but would you be okay with a card, a Giannis card? I think they have a relationship with Tom Brady. Would you be okay with a Tom Brady card in a Fanatics holder, so to speak, that just says Tom Brady, 1 of 1? That's not the same as grading your card. That's putting them in a holder. And I think there's a presumption that all cards from the manufacturers nowadays, from the printing presses, are in pretty good condition. I don't want to say perfect, but, darn good condition. If the sooner you get it into a holder, maybe you make it a box topper. Maybe you make it a separate listing. There's always a way to generate income. And that's just one of them. And I want to throw out something else. What if remember, they only have the licenses with NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. What if, remember, NIL people are available for everybody in colleges. What if you wanted to be Renegade and sign up exclusive contracts like Upper Deck has with, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, they have Ben Simmons. That's not the great, that turned out not to be so great, but they've got LeBron James. They've got Michael Jordan. They've had Ken Griffey Jr. in the past. What if you're Panini or Topps and you sign, Panini has the college license. Why not sign every player you think is a potential professional football player to a 5-year contract? And you can't do anything for 5 years. And then watch the legal battle take place. I'm not a lawyer, and I did not sleep at the Holiday Inn last night, but I'm just thinking outside the box. If I'm them, I'm looking seriously into what can we set up with a relationship long time with these players. I know that like when Panini signed Charles Barkley, no, they couldn't put him into an NBA jersey. They couldn't show those and get him to sign, but they could get him to sign Auburn cards.
Yeah, we're going to see that, Rich. I think we're going to see exclusive deals and scrambling to get those deals done. I think we're going to see some litigation based on some of those occurrences as well. Chris, I was about to ask you a question, Rich, and Chris actually typed it in the chat. So I'm going to put it up, and we got Logan. I'm going to bring him on here in a second. But Chris says, Fanatics buying Beckett is a super conflict of interest. The same company that manufactures and distributes cards is now going to both grade and price cards. No way. That's my thing. It's still, to me, it's still a conflict of interest. Like, it's, even if they keep the Beckett grading, the BGS name, but everyone knows that Fanatics bought it. It's not going to be a secret, obviously. To me, it is a conflict of interest. I wouldn't even send my cards there anymore. You know, I just would.
I'm also pointing out that I believe the company that owns or has this, some money in. There are like CS, I think CSG is owned by the same people. I mean, there's all sorts of money.
Yeah, it's true.
Different people. There's Heritage, there's PSA, there's Golden. All these people are getting money from new sources, and these new sources are in all these things we call conflicts of interest. Why not just make it official? I mean, we are not government regulated. If you're going to have a conflict of interest, you might as well be open about it.
Yeah. Regulation. We're not government. The hobby's not government regulated. It's just not regulated, period, by
right. So
anybody.
So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it all the way. And Logan, I know, is at the Nashville Card Show. I'd love to hear what he thinks about it.
Yeah, so he bopped back out. So I don't know if he was happy. Oh, here he is again. All right, I'm going to bring him on. There he is. And where are you? You're in North Carolina show,
hey, guys.
Right?
You're at the Nashville show, right?
I am.
Or Tennessee.
The Music City Sports Collectible Show in Nashville.
All right. What's going on behind you? It looks like chairs. It looks like you're on a stage. It looks like you're on backstage somewhere. I don't know if he can. He probably having trouble hearing. Can you hear us, Logan? Live on the scene in Nashville. He's leaving the show.
Well, I actually came outside because I was getting some pretty poor reception. Plus, there's a lot of noise in there.
How's the show?
It's pretty good. Of course, it's nothing like the National. You can actually walk around and look at tables and see things, so that's a plus. There's a lot of shiny cards, and there's also a lot of vintage stuff here.
How's the crowd?
It's fair. Like I said, the aisles are very walkable, and like I said, you can get up to the cases real easy and look at stuff. It's a pretty good show. There's like about 200 tables.
How many days is the show going to run?
It's a 3-day show. It started last night and it goes through tomorrow. And it's actually in Franklin, Tennessee, which is kind of south of Nashville, about 25 miles or so, I guess, south of Nashville.
So have you bought anything yet?
For me, I saw a couple of cool things. I've seen some Dale Earnhardt autographs and a couple of cool downtown NASCAR cards, but not a whole lot. As far as the regular hobby is concerned, if you want it, it's here. I've seen Jordan rookies. I've seen 52 Mantles. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here.
How about NASCAR? No, you're the NASCAR guy. Like, are you disappointed with what you've seen on that level, or it's about what you expected?
It's kind of what I expected. It used to be back, of course, 30 years ago when NASCAR was really hot. Nashville was a hotbed for NASCAR, and I would come up here from Memphis and, go to they even had shops dedicated just to NASCAR here. There were several. So it's changed a lot. I actually thought there would be more NASCAR here, but there's, it is what it is, I guess.
Anybody signing there? Any athletes or celebrities appearing?
Yeah, there's quite a few. There's a lot of wrestlers. I think Ric Flair's here, Jerry Lawler, Pete Rose is here, Reggie Jackson. There's a lot of signers. In fact, I just heard him talk about Tiffany is here.
Remember her? Remember her, Logan? I think
Oh, I
we're
remember
alone
her.
now. It gives me a chance to sing. So
We just lost our audience.
I was hoping Rick was going to do a woo when you
Woo!
mentioned Ric Flair, but he didn't. He didn't do it. So,
But yeah,
well,
it's a pretty cool
we're
show.
we're seeing a lot more shows as we sort of some of the numbers pertaining to COVID-19 do get better, and then more people do get vaccinated. And I just did my first one here in 2 years in Syracuse, and so shows. I know Rich agrees, and shows are an important part of the hobby. Not just as a dealer that I do them, but even in attending them as well. So good to see you, man. Anything you want to add now that you can hear us and we can hear you about anything we spoke upon?
I've kind of been listening to you guys. It's kind of been hard inside of there because of the crowd. But as far as the fanatics wanting to be the one stop shop, I'm kind of like you, John. I'm not a fan of that. That's something I really don't want to see.
Yeah. No, I agree. Obviously, because I said I think a lot. I think that's. I don't want to speak for everyone. I think if you took a poll, maybe that's a great poll. I think the majority of hobbyists don't want to see that. I don't think. I don't think. And fanatics shouldn't take that personally. If we whoever company want to put in even before this takeover sort of happened, if you said, "Hey, we want Topps to do everything, grade cards, sell cards," I don't think anyone would have signed up for that. Now you got this they're not a new company, but they're sort of new to this space and what they're trying to do. That's the other thing. It's not like they've done this a long time and have experience in the card aspect of it, and they're just kind of wanting to do everything right away. Sort of like I'm a sort of pay your dues sort of guy. Like let's see what you can do, and then we'll give you the promotion kind of a. They want the promotion without really paying the dues. And I'm not a fan of any company doing everything. I think that's a recipe for bad stuff to potentially happen. And so I don't care whether it's Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, and or Fanatics. It's not me picking on Fanatics. I think that's just a bad place to be. And with the hobby doing fairly well, I think that could be something that could potentially turn it the other way.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of monopolies, and especially in the hobby. I think that kind of like what I think heard Sam say earlier is, I like it. I like to see it spread out amongst everybody. Competition is good.
Yep. No, you're right. That's the thing. When only one person's really kind of the forefront leader, they can do all sorts of crazy stuff price wise and in the corner in the market. And I don't think it's good on the consumer end. I think that's kind of what you just pointed out. So hopefully, hopefully this all shakes out again, like Rich says, and that's the fact. We got a couple years, really. There's going to be stories along the way here in the next couple years. More interviews, probably from Michael Rubin, where more stuff comes out. Topps is going to have something to say. Panini, Upper Deck, any company really, because this affects everybody. So this is going to be a 2 to 3 year news cycle before we even see anything of fruition really. And
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting for sure.
yeah, it's going to be a wild ride for the next few years, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, man. We didn't want you to leave the show, so we're gonna kick you out of the room so you can get back in there and spend all your money.
All righty. See you guys.
See ya.
All right. Thanks, Logan. All right. So, again, like I said, I don't want to see it, but it's not me picking on Fanatics, Rich and Sam. I just don't think it's a good thing for the hobby. Whenever I decide, whenever I'm thinking about something that's good, bad, I know this is going to sound kind of cliche. I always think not just about me personally, but like what's this going to do to the hobby, immediate and even long term? There's two sides to that coin, and I just think it's too fast. This is a company that hasn't produced a card on their own yet, and they're talking about grading them. This is, they want to do everything. Again, if I'm a distributor, and I won't name any, they know who they are, we know who they are. I'd be a little bit nervous right about now. Fanatics also has a store model. They have lids in other places. So, I know, Rex, as an LCS and plenty of, I'd be a little, I wouldn't be, if I'm an LCS owner, I wouldn't be as worried as I would be if I'm a distributor. I don't think it's to that level. But, makes you wonder if they want to do everything, what's to say they just don't open franchises, like Burger King and McDonald's, but instead of burgers, they're selling their wax boxes, maybe single cards, right? And they got the capital. Let's not forget that now. That number is probably going to go up from whatever 18.
It already has. I was Googling as we were checking. It's going up. It is 18.4, but it was about 12 a few months ago.
Yeah, that 18.
The valuation's already gone up by 50%.
Yeah, that number's going to probably go up. And don't forget, they just got $150 million a seed investment from other investment. That's going to probably continue. So if they really, and I'm not saying I want to see this, I'm just saying, putting my speculator's hat on. If they wanted to open up a bunch of Fanatics card stores across the country, they potentially could do that. And if I'm an LCS, that doesn't mean we're going to go out of business, right? But depending on where that Fanatics card store winds up, if it's around the corner from me, probably not a good thing. Or in my same town, probably not a good thing. So it's going to be interesting. They kind of, now that we've heard from Michael Rubin for the first time, he's kind of I don't want to say let the cat out of the bag. It was going to come out, but he's really not gun shy to say, hey, we want to do as much as we can do by ourselves because we have confidence in our brand, our company, and that we can do it right. And if I'm any industry in the hobby, I'd be like, even selling, so eBay's and your PWCC platforms and any other selling platforms, I would start to take notice and, think about the future. But again, like we said, it's going to be a couple years before things really, we see actual substance to the talk. But it's a crazy time in the hobby. Rich, you've done this a long time. I've done this a long time. If you would have told me, years ago, like something like this would occur, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But yet, here we are. That's the truth of the matter. And so,
well, I will tell you, the last 18 months have been a ride none of us expected. When we shut down, I know I wrote about this for one of those distributors we're mentioning about for my column. We all thought that the hobby would implode and end. Instead, we've been on a ride unlike one we've seen for 30 years. And then, 1979, 1980, it was the first hedge against inflation. In 1988, 87 through 91, 92, 93. I mean, we've all been on Dr. Beckett's show. The hobby exploded. We were printing 1 million baseball magazines. Not when you think in 90 or 91, 93 is when we actually printed more baseball and basketball magazines than we'd ever printed before. We were printing more magazines 93, 94 than we were in 90, 91. And I mean, we had, and that's public information because of the OMC statements we had to do. So that's not betraying any company. We had to publish those. You have to publish your magazine and circulation information.
Couple comments from Rex, which are interesting. Panini has plans to launch on-demand co-branded college and player products this fall, and kind of talking on what I just said. Speaking of Fanatics, they will likely sell wax in their own stores. I think it would be much tougher to buy, sell, and trade singles at that local level. It would be hard to train employees to do that well, meaning Fanatics. So yeah, maybe we see kind of card stores change direction. Like the LCSs become more singles based, rather than selling wax and singles. Maybe they kind of become specialized. Obviously, you can still do breaks if you get product to do breaks. Maybe they could do that. But the landscape is changing by the minute. I mean, what do you, Sam, Rich? I mean, if you're a distributor, I mean, what do? You're the CEO of a distributing company right now. What's the game plan? What would you do?
Well, the game plan is keep going what you're doing and work on building a relationship with anybody new and go from there. I mean, there's always ways to do things. And maybe you go into supplies. I haven't heard one word about supplies yet.
Yep. Well, listen, what I heard of Michael Rubin, they're going to probably want to be doing that too. So,
hey, it's a free country. If they can do it, God bless them. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, hopefully they're not completely reliant on just sports. I know some of the distributors do like gaming and that other stuff, so that might be a space that they want to look into more now than ever. Is kind of, I think, expanding maybe beyond the sports atmosphere. I think they really just need to do a really good kind of analysis of what areas can they get into to kind of recoup, obviously, this loss that they're probably about to encounter. So
yeah, and then we forget the human aspect of this too, Sam and Rich. As their market cap goes down, as they may lose products, right? They're going to have to most likely lay off staff or let people go based on income and revenue. And so there's that human element that some people may lose their employment, not just at the distributor level, but, your Tops and Paninis as well. That's, somewhere my mind always goes to as someone who just lost his employment, and happy to say I'll be starting my next ventures here soon. But it's always a scary deal when that happens, and you sort of, whether you're there a year or someplace double-digit years, you get comfortable, and then sort of the rug gets pulled out from you. So for those people, I hope the best. I hope it's minimal to begin with, and but you'd be kind of naive to say that there isn't going to be job loss with these recent business decisions. And for anyone, I know that the old debate in the hobby, investment, hobby, it's not an investment. Here's what I'll say to that. I have my own thoughts, but that aside, the money we're seeing on these deals and what cards are selling for on these auction markets, this is a business. You may not do it for that reason, and you don't have to. That's the beauty of the hobby. But to say the hobby is not a business, you're fooling yourself when you see kind of the deals that are going on every day now. Every day. Used to be in the old days, Rich remembers this, you get like something like this maybe every couple months on a busy year, and now it's a daily transaction. We see people combining forces, buyouts, investment, seed money, licensing agreements, and individual player contracts with companies. It's if you don't pay attention, you'll miss things, and it's fast moving, but we'll see. We're kind of at 1 hour.
We're in overtime.
Yeah, we're a little bit. I've talked enough. Any comments kind of as we wind down here?
Well, first, Rex had a wonderful comment. Adapt and change, form relationships, but that's also true for any store. Adapt and change. The world changes, you adapt with it as a store owner. When I started going to stores in the mid and late 70s, it wasn't wax, it was single cards. You bought your packs at the grocery store or whatever, and you bought single cards at the at the card store, and they were small card stores at the time. They were a little hole in the walls. Now you have all this supplies. You have memorabilia. I saw Funko Pops. Those are very popular. There are so many different ways to sell sports related items. And so you will adapt, you will thrive, you will figure it out. It is nothing that hasn't changed. If you had told me when I did my first show in 1979 that I'd be a dinosaur in 2021, I would have laughed. I am a dinosaur. I still bring boxes of cards for people to look at it at the shows. But now I've borrowed some showcases from a friend of mine. They sit in my car. It's sort of it helps. It gives them more room, so they sit in the trunk of my car. There's nothing in other than showcases, but they are there. And now I put cards in showcases to draw people to my table. It used to be, hey, just put out your boxes. People will look through. Now I still want people to look through, but I got to have the eye candy too. But I want to switch topics for a second. We've had a fun hour talking about sports cards. My 3-year-old great nephew got diagnosed with a form of cancer yesterday. The most wonderful young man you'll ever, always smiling, always wonderful. His mom is 7 months pregnant. Thankfully, everybody so far has the financial resources to deal with this. But, it reminds us what is the difference, what really matters. I'd love him to grow up to be a collector. Right now, I just love him to be able to grow up.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Rich, and prayers go out, hopefully with a positive outcome there. Speaking of that, before, I meant to do this earlier. So some of you may know Joey Shiver, or AKA Dumb Mentality. He lost his father last night. His father passed away. So I think I speak for a lot of people when I say we're thinking about you, Joey. Condolences. And if you need anything, you have a lot of people in your corner. Feel free to reach out. And I dealt with my own loss this year. It's always a tough deal, and we're thinking about you, and sorry to hear about your dad. Tough to throw it to Sam, but going back, steering it back to Car, just sort of you kind of, your final thoughts about some of the topics we talked about.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm also sorry to hear that, Rich. Hopefully everything works out and he can become a collector later in life as well, or even now in a while. So but yeah, in terms of cards, I think the last kind of topic that we've hit on here is, for these people, all these deals we talk about, it is just going to be important for everyone involved, I think, to be flexible, as we've been saying, and just kind of adapt to these changes, and do what you still like. If you don't like something, then don't participate anymore, or change it. And so I think it's just kind of like, yeah, you just got to be flexible with what comes your way, and adapt as it comes, or just kind of move on through that way. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. I think even just beyond cards too, if we go beyond cards, it's important in life just to be flexible with all the changes coming in the real world. I think that's a good mentality to have overall. So.
And I'm going to say something I've always said from day one. When you don't like something, right? Our tagline of my show is "The hobby's the people." We, as powerful as Fanatics is, the people, ultimately, the hobbies have the power, and that power is their dollar, their wallet, their purses. You change the narrative with what you spend money on and where you put that money. If you don't like something, don't partake in purchasing it. And so we speak on that side of the fence, and sometimes I think we forget that as a whole in the hobby. And so at the end of the day, I don't think we always use that power always wisely, or we kind of take it for granted. But we, enjoy the hobby any way you choose. If you don't like something Fanatics or another company's doing, you don't have to support that. And there's other ways to enjoy the hobby. I saw a comment earlier And it's something I've done more in the last couple of years. I've always done it, but I've sort of pivoted. There's vintage side. You can buy existing cards that are already out there. I've seen a few people say, I love Topps, blah, blah, blah. I'm not supporting Fanatics after this, and I'm not going to buy new cards. It's an extreme statement, but if that's how you feel, you can still be in the hobby. And that's what they said. Hey, I'm just going to buy vintage cards. I'm going to go to a show and buy, those Hall of Famers and still stay in the hobby. And that's my point. You can pivot and stay in the hobby even if you don't like the current landscape. You don't have to just take your ball and go home. I've seen some people say that too, like, I'm getting out. This is my kind of cue to sell my collection. But you don't have to. There's alternatives to that. So, but with that being said, thanks. The chat room was tried to put as many comments as I could up. We're in the early stages of this, and yet it's still a huge topic of discussion. I'm sure we'll have many more of these in the next few years as different things come out. So, for Uncle Rich Yoda and Sam, that's your new name. Like, believe me, I'm sure there's gonna be a few Canva graphics coming up too, Rich. I just gotta warn you. So, but thanks everyone. Remember, if you didn't catch this live, I'm getting the audio versions out a day or two after the live show, and so you can catch them on all your major platforms that offer all your favorite podcasts. So we'd love to see you live. And remember, you can always call in and come on screen as well. So with that being said, everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you in a week.